Greetings, geeks, and welcome to episode 457 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and joining me today in pretend low Earth orbit, I have two of the finest geeks you're ever going to meet who are willing to pretend with me for a half hour and talk about stuff. I got Chris DeBona.
Howdy, peoples.
And Rob Roseboom.
Hi, I have love in my heart.
That's a lot better than what you usually have inside of you.
Indeed.
I think if I took a core sample of myself, you would primarily find the insides of Swiss cake roll, whatever that cream is.
Oh, like that tasteless white cream that is somehow absurdly white. It's like so white it should have like a clan hood.
It's so white that it should be a member of the Geeks and Days call-in group.
That's mostly Crisco mixed with powdered sugar.
Yeah, right. But yeah, but only enough powdered sugar so it just tastes this side of rancid. You know? But yeah.
It's true. I almost finished re-editing last night's episode. I had to cancel the render because it looks like it's going to take about 40 minutes to render on the NUC. So I'll do that again while I go and visit the post office. And then the Jakes and the Elons of the world can enjoy the rest of the episode.
It's going to be kind of like a fractured fairy tale, you know?
You know, we actually didn't lose much because we caught it real quick.
Okay.
Like there's like a 30-second blip in between each of, and there's only 3 breaks. It's not bad.
Okay.
It only sucks that people were watching on the live stream, and I should have just restarted the live stream, but I didn't want to. I was afraid of what was going to happen. So anyway, AC/DC, you might be aware of them. They are a rock and roll band from ancient times.
That's Akadaka for our Australian friends, by the way.
I liked Akadaka almost as much as I liked Megadeth. I was a pretty big fan of Megadeth.
Yeah.
They have put... Well,
I'm watching the video over here.
Yeah. They didn't put this out, but somebody generated a Markov chain of AC/DC lyrics and got, I'm assuming, some crappy cover band to record it. And it's funny. It's a lot about lady balls.
Yes, it's very ball oriented.
Yep.
You know, I love these things. I love like when they give them the Batman script and so forth. I love reading those things.
YouTube is trying to recommend something called Nickelbot, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, you gotta have standards.
Yeah, I mean, I respect myself, and I hope all of our listeners respect themselves too much to go look at the Nickelbot video. This is some high quality internet entertainment, though, right? That's here. True. This AC/DC thing.
That's true. No, it's choice. Reddit is gonna do cryptocurrencies now. For their I guess for like social currency.
Reddit
for, like,
Gold now. Reddit Ethereum Gold.
Well, I don't know if it's meant to be that as much as it is. I mean, I'm sure that's a part of it, but I think it's meant to also be more of a karma type system, you know, a way of measuring
community points.
Yeah. Like contribution. Sorry, this sort of stuff is interesting to me, Chris. I did this stuff for a while. I mean,
it's an interesting way of doing it, but I think that they're trying to incentivize positive behavior. It's on the Ethereum chain. The spokesperson did not name the two communities, but in addition, users will be able to leave a tip for comments they like or posts they see as valuable. You know what it was? They were selling too much Reddit Gold and making too much money, and they wanted to ruin that market. You know? Sure. Oh, no. People shouldn't give us money. Let's stop that in its tracks.
Well, you know, if you want to be future-minded, you have to be either on the blockchain, because, I mean... Everything good has been ruined. So, I mean, that's the only thing, right? You can't do, what is it, or peer-to-peer or whatever, or SaaS. That stuff's all old.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be all sassy.
No. I don't know. I mean,
it looks pensive. Brosboom, what do you think about Ethereum-based blockchain comment mechanics.
I think that making money is gross, and I'm glad they changed it to a more conscious, socially viable system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's just another version of the karma system, right? Call it something different. It's the same thing.
Exactly. Except for now they're making even less money. It's like Reddit, this gold thing wasn't your big money maker, I know, but do you think they're actually making money from ads enough to pay for Reddit? I mean, they can't be, right?
I mean, maybe not enough to justify the valuation that they've got these days, but I mean,
No.
all I know is that I'm the bad person who, when I see ads on Reddit, I block them and mark them as abuse. I'm the fly in the ointment of all social systems. I don't know.
Yeah, so I have like house advertisements. Okay, there's clearly a remarketing ad. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be hard for all of those businesses right now. I'm certainly glad that I'm not in it anymore, because that sucks.
Yeah. Well, they laid off 155 people at Vice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. HBO Max is doing Snow Crash.
So was it me, or was that article remarkably light on details?
Yes. It was approximately
So it
the
was
same
me?
amount. No, you're correct. It was approximately the same level of detail as we got when they announced, was it HBO that got the deal with J.J. Abrams? And they were like, we're going to give him these 3 franchises. That's the story.
Okay.
But, we're not going to be able to shoot. Actually, we could shoot this show. You could shoot a lot of Snow Crash virtually. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're not to a place where you can do motion capture suits, I suppose, in people's living rooms yet, but we're pretty close.
So, I don't know. I mean, the first prequel was basically them, acting against sticks with balloons at the end of them. So that didn't work out so well. And those were good actors by any independent measure. The actors that went into that were good. They just had nothing to work with.
Okay, so this is a loaded thing, right? Because there's a whole bunch of weird things connected to like the technology of the time. Like episode 2, they were shot fully digitally, and they didn't have enough pixel depth to fully capture the color that they needed in order to properly green screen the actors. So that's why every single shot in that movie that's a human being looks blurry, because they're all like foggy around the edges. We're past that now. And in fact, now you can motion capture a human being and render that back out relatively easily. We're not at living room state yet, but we're a couple of years away from where you could make a TV show and have all of the actors just wear virtual reality helmets and ping pong balls on their wrists and ankles, and point a IR camera or something at them and get something. It's not going to be Avatar for a while.
Well, that's probably a good thing. But so Joe Cornish. So the one piece of information is they're having Joe Cornish, who did Attack the Block and The Kid Who Would Be King, which was actually pretty good.
I haven't seen the latter. Rob, have you seen Attack the Block?
Yeah, I love it.
That's a good one.
That was great.
It's great.
Yeah. Brought us John Boyega, I mean, that was a good movie. It was a solid movie. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was really new in how they handled things. Yeah,
Fresh.
The Kid Who Would Be King was good. It had, it's basically a retelling of the King Arthur, Sword from the Stone thing.
Yeah.
But with kids, right? And the kid is actually, I think, the son of the Gollum, the guy who plays Gollum.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah. So.
That's definitely on my watch list. It shows up regularly as like highly recommended.
Totally watch it with your kids. It's really good. Yeah.
So the U.S. is blocking all shipments of semiconductors now to, I don't know how you pronounce it, Huawei?
Huawei, really?
Yeah.
Well, so this is kind of a non-story, because the reality is all those semiconductors are coming from Shenzhen, and coming from Taiwan and coming from, you know, Singapore. So I have a hard time trying to figure out which chips exactly they think they're keeping them from using.
Right.
Um,
Well, there's a story here,
are they trying to keep Taiwan from shipping to Huawei?
There's a story here, and we
Are
don't know what that story is.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's all the stuff that you hear about, the creepy stories about like hidden microcode or whatever in CPUs that China's using. This is something. Fox is going to put in. They're gonna do crowd noises at sporting events that do not have fans, which is kind of like a laugh track for sports.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I watched this past week the last 2 UFC events that they held in Florida, and they're in arenas without anybody, and it is
Weird.
very, very different to watch. In particular, because the fighters can hear the commentators.
Oh, really?
And actually start doing different things during the middle of the fights, like their coaches. So they've had to enact, like, the commentators now kind of try to whisper and not talk so loud, so that
Really?
they don't affect the outcome of the fights. It's kind of interesting. Very strange to watch, though.
That's
particularly when the theme music goes and you just hear it echo throughout the stadium.
Yeah.
No one else there. It's very strange.
So I'm looking at pictures from let's say a fight between Francis Ngannou and Jay Rosenstreich.
Yeah.
I mean, and it reminds me of the boxing episode of Battlestar Galactica, because there's like a dark room around them,
Yep.
and there's people wearing masks, like the refs and the people with towels and stuff are wearing masks and stuff, and it's like, yeah, all right, this is a thing. But it really reminds me of like that episode, which was the worst episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
So
the thing that I wonder now is, I mean, I assume that Fox has already been pumping in like crowd noises during Trump rallies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I wonder, like,
lock her up.
Right. It's huge.
Build the wall. Lick the eyeball.
Totally. So 92 of the top 500 subreddits are controlled by the same 5 people. I was actually scrolling through a list, and they actually, I mean, it's not particularly surprising, but apparently this is like recently unearthed information, and there's a lot of angry people. And if you moderate or if you post comments on Reddit and like call out this fact, then you get your comment deleted.
Huh. Are you one of them?
I am most definitely not one of them.
I mean, they should really ask you to join.
No, they should.
You're 60, right?
They should really ask Rob to join, because he moderated way more comments than me.
Yeah, I had it figured out. It was something like over 500,000 comments at the end there.
Yeah.
I think that's what the math was. I can't remember exactly. It was a lot.
I don't know. It's an interesting story, and I'm always interested in this sort of thing, just because it's hard to know, because there's a curtain behind what's happening with the moderators, and this is a problem that we had to deal with all the time, right? We had a pretty strict policy that meta conversation about moderation was off topic, and therefore grounds for down modding. This isn't, they have their own policies, of course, but they allow just deleting of comments, which I guess Slashdot probably does now too, but I don't actually know. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see that that's the current hullabaloo. But I mean, we went through flavor of the month conspiracies, so I'm not sure if this is one of those or if this is something else. Nvidia has announced their Ampere GPU.
Ampere.
And I am wondering if that's going to have any effect on any market prices, because I don't know when I'm going to buy my GPU for my gaming rig after my motherboard ships, which at this point might not even be 2020.
So it's my impression, honestly, that so I have a 2080, not a 2080 Ti. I have a 2080 Super, which is a way of saying it's like 2080 Ti with a smaller node size, less power consumption, and 8 GB of memory instead of 11. And honestly, this is something we should have Uriah on for, because he has this amazing rant against Nvidia, process of updating their GPUs. Long and short of it is, I have a 980 Ti that is pretty remarkable, even compared to my 2080 Super, and I bought that like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So I would say that I would buy a 2070 or a 2080 after they bring out some, Ampere based, but I don't think they're gonna rev their GPUs. This is almost exclusively for CUDA cores.
Yeah, this is data center stuff.
So yeah, it is, but it's CUDA cores and tensor cores. I don't think it really does much in the RTX cores or in the GPU parts of the GPU.
And I don't even care about that. I care about how it will cause prices to drop for like a 2080. Like, can I get a 2080 for $500 instead of $800?
Yeah. I for your sake, I hope so.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah.
Let's see. There's
it was a pretty baffling. So unless you really care about doing, machine learning or whatever, this is kind of a flop from an enthusiast standpoint. I mean, like, I don't know what you get out of this.
That's not the goal, though. This is just the next generation.
Yeah, that's true. They're specifically trying to go after the tensor cores and the rest.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I have to assume that they've got to be working on whatever the version of the next gen of their card that will actually power a 4K monitor at 144 megahertz on
hertz.
Yeah, it's been a long day, man. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I drank a lot of whiskey last night.
Well, it was hard to get through with all the crashes and all the rest,
Yeah, there was some stress on my end. But yeah, that if I could find a card that would power a 4K monitor on like ultra settings, then that would probably be the one that I'd buy right now. But I don't think that there really is that. All right, let's see. Who's not coming back to Picard? It doesn't matter, because none of those people. I mean, who cares, right? Ugh.
Yeah, I had to be reminded that who Narek was.
Yeah.
Which one's Narek? Oh, he's the elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the sword elf.
So literally.
So I'm certainly gonna miss him. He really.
Yep.
Oh, he's not coming back.
He's not.
Yeah, he's like the Rug. He's like the Rug and Lebowski. He tied the whole show together.
Yeah, they needed that.
Did he? Wait, so who isn't also coming back so that Whoopi Goldberg can return?
They got
that was only one named in the chopping block. So everyone else good to go.
Oh, man, it was such a bad show.
But
such a bad show.
They're doing a spin-off of Star Trek Discovery where they're going to follow Pike and Number One.
Yeah, which I admit I'm looking forward to, even though I probably shouldn't, And it's animated.
No, is it? Are you messing with me?
I think it is. I think it is, actually.
That'd be kind of cool, actually.
No,
okay,
I don't.
All right. Strange New Worlds. Let's look it up. Strange.
I mean, what it comes down to for me with all of these Star Trek shows, and I've said this 100 million times, give me episodic content where they go to a science fiction place and encounter a science fiction thing. And if you want to have a season-long thing, fine, but that's the B plot, not the A plot for every episode.
The beginning of Discovery I liked quite a bit. It was just...
Yeah, me too.
The Red Angel just was a little bit too much for me at the end,
I liked how they tied the season up.
So Lower Decks is definitely animated.
But I assumed that was a spin-off from their Trek Shorts thing, because they had a couple of those were animated, and the animated ones were the weaker ones.
I think you're right. I don't think it is. I mean, it'd be a shame because I really enjoyed Anson Mount as Pike.
I mean,
for sure.
The charisma that those folks all had, and but they had the format of a Trek show, right? Like a charismatic captain, and like going on adventures, and it's not all just hating on everything.
Tough as nail #1,
Yeah.
It's like, and then Spock.
I mean, he was fine.
I don't think was he really? I mean, again, it's the same problem in Picard, right? It's like he has the name Spock. He is ostensibly a Vulcan, and that's where everything falls apart. It's like
you might as well have cast Kirstie Alley.
Yeah, I mean, you might as, or I don't know. Well, it's just any number of 5'11" skinny actors and have them be, with pointy ears. Boom. You're as Spock as this was.
Chris, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you don't actually need to cast actors with pointy ears. They're doing that with CGI now.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had mine sculpted so I could get the jet. No,
you had yours sculpted so you could be let into Comic-Con.
I mean, if they ever do another Hellboy movie, it'll be a lot easier to cast now.
Right? Because there's a lot more Hellboys on the planet. Ron Perlman didn't have to keep, carving down his horns for that one,
Or eating an all shrimp diet to make his skin red.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's basically like a pelican, or a flamingo.
Flamingo. Yeah.
He did a lot better job than what David, who was the guy that was the new Hellboy?
The guy who was in the Marvel movie and Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. Oh.
And he was in Extraction. Like, Extraction was basically like Netflix saying, "Oh, we'll take an actor from our Netflix series and that Netflix series, we'll just put them all together."
The algorithm.
Yeah, in that case, I think it was a combination of things. One, that Ron Perlman's just a better actor, but I also think the
script was better.
Yeah, he had better writing behind him.
And I adore Selma Blair. She is very cute, and I always think she was a great, fun person to watch act.
So it looks like,
and they had. Go ahead.
20th Century Fox is gonna be putting out a big movie in August. Then they're putting out New Mutants in theaters.
Hasn't this been waiting for like 3 years to get released?
Years.
Like,
for sure, a year, just waiting to be released. So
even longer than that, because I think they shot this like 3 years ago now, and then they had reshoots a year or two later. And since it's an all teenage cast, they all aged so much between the two that that was a criticism of the test screenings, is that like you can tell the difference in ages between the reshoots because some of the actors just grew up. I mean, I'm actually kind of interested in it because it is kind of supposed to be a horror movie. I mean, as horror as you can get. And I mean, that could be a fun thing to do, but I can't imagine that this is going to be a good movie. But it is kind of cool to see that there was controversy about this one, right? Were they going to send it to Hulu or something like that? Or were they going to actually release it to theaters? And it's nice to see, like, even now, 20th Century Fox, that's Disney now, right? Putting a flag in the ground that says, we're going to put a movie in the theater that we hope will make, $100 to $200 million in the theater. And I don't there's no other movies that they're doing that with right now.
Right. It will be interesting to see how good it is, since I think DC does sort of the horror superhero thing way better than Marvel does. But they're going full-fledged with the trying to make this a horror movie. So
I don't know if I expressed my disappointment to you guys. It's not really science fiction, but I loved the original Valley Girl so much. I watched it so often. I had the soundtrack playing full time when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, right? and they remade it and fast released it to streaming, and I'm very disappointed. I haven't watched it yet, but basically it's like they sort of put it through the Glee Play-Doh Fun Factory of shows.
I haven't watched it yet, but I hate it.
I haven't watched it yet, and I'm really disappointed, and I probably hate it too. And like so the original Valley Girl had an amazing soundtrack. It had Sparks, it had the Plimsolls, it had these like LA rock and roll bands that were really just iconic for the time, right?
I've never seen it.
It's fantastic. We are gonna watch it for our NECA reviews. That's an order. And like it's got Nicolas Cage as the rocker from Hollywood, and it's got Deborah Foreman as like the Valley Girl, and she's dating this boy, and it's very West Side Story in that, you know, you can't date a boy from Hollywood. And his friends are like, but she's so plastic, man. There's no singing except for by the bands when he takes her to the Rockin' Hollywood bar, right? And it's like, it's a great movie, and it's like, it's very much a product of its time, and they dared to remake it. And it's set in the 80s, but it's like an 80s from the, so that's what I call the 80s CD music playing. They play Aha, they play this other stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is not okay, you know? Anyway,
I'm sorry.
So I just I'm very upset, you know.
I watched the old one, and like you, I watched the new one. I saw that came up. I was like, I don't have the same love in my heart for the old Valley Girls that you do, but yeah,
my sister and I though,
it's like over this movie. It's like when they remade Footloose. You know, there's a certain some exec that is out there just greenlighting all these obscure 80s movies, you know. So.
And that executive needs a punch in the stomach, you know.
That's how it is.
They don't
now.
love what they're doing.
No, they're just
more stomach punching. And like the woman who does the voice of Tommy Pickles in the Rugrats is in the original Valley Girl as like this girl kind of gets in over her head with the boy, and she's really upset and isn't a great friend to Deborah Foreman, but you know, she has all these redeeming features. I mean, dude.
Well, as long as they never
pop collars, pink pastels. I mean, just a visual cornucopia.
As long as they never try to redo Repo Man, I'll be fine.
Repo Man 2.
If they ever redo Short Circuit, we riot.
No, man. Short Circuit in the end, you know, it doesn't elevate it, you know?
They already kind of redid that with Chappie.
That's true.
They really didn't redo it with Chappie. Chappie's a very different movie than Short Circuit. I mean, they have common themes, but you know, I don't remember a lot of. Well, I mean, so there was some racism and weird ethnic humor in Short Circuit, but like,
right,
Chappie was just a whole different world, man.
Chappie takes place in South Africa.
It also has ninja
in South Africa,
and is a little bit more violent, but other than that, sort of the story arc and theme of those movies are the same.
It is very much the same. Sort of like how Cars is the exact same story as Doc Hollywood.
And and like 4 other things, But it's almost like My Fair Lady too.
You guys should definitely take a moment and try to crash your SpaceX capsule into the International Space Station.
I saw that.
Yeah,
that was really neat.
I tried to do it and then I got bored, but you should totally do it for like a minute. It does give you an appreciation for how annoying flying in space is. It ain't X-Wings.
No, it's really hard. That's why they have computers do it.
Yeah.
You know? But No, so the story about Twitter allowing employees to work at home forever is very interesting, isn't it? Well, I think it's very interesting.
Didn't you guys say now you're through like October or something?
So we sort of have a concept of some people can come back if they really, really have to, if there's some compelling reason, like June even. But I'll probably be in this shed of ignominy through next year, you know? I mean, this is actually a huge opportunity to rethink how we do facilities in a company like Google. But it's like the word forever is a very interesting word because it reminds me of like VA Linux when we had to do the layoffs because we got out of hardware after being in hardware forever. And I'm like, and you hear these stories about Uber letting go 3,500 people over Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah. And so I'm like, so is Twitter just saying we're going to lay people off from home? It's a new innovation than laying people off. You know? It's like, I mean, it's very grim, you know, because it's like, you know,
do you know how much
it's the forever that catches me up, you know.
Do you know how much the Bobs would love firing people over Zoom?
The
Bobs would love it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, Bob. I report to a Zoom cloud.
What would you say you do here exactly?
You know, Bob, that's a great question. I have 6 bosses, Bob.
I mean, we worked from home for years, like a third of the time, half the time, you know, and I think that we could have worked from home 100% of the time. But you know, it's nice to socialize. I think that for a lot of these businesses, you could absolutely turn it around into you know, come into the office on, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays when your team is in the office or something. Like just ways to spread it out, which is good for social distancing and it's good for human beings. The thing that killed me about my last job was just having a 55 to 65 minute commute. I mean, the idea that you're working, you're theoretically working a 40-hour work week, and then on top of your 40-hour work week, you're spending an additional day of your work week in your car, away from your family. That's crazy.
It's horrible. Yeah. It's funny because actually the biggest sticking point for people working from home ongoing is actually childcare. It's not, you know, like bandwidth or chair, these other things. I mean, yeah, there's some people who can never work from home productively,
Sure,
for whatever reason. But like for a lot of people, it's we got to figure out childcare. Otherwise, working from home does not work. You know, it can't work.
well, that's the thing, right? Is that the working from home thing is almost incompatible with remote education. Like I have a sixth grader, and that kid would not get anything done school wise if I was trying to like do meetings for 4 or 5 hours a day.
Is that a measure of how your house is constructed for privacy or not privacy, or is it a measure of your shit bandwidth?
I think it's more a measure of the attention span capabilities of the sixth grader.
Okay, yeah, because my seventh grader, he's if anything, there are way less distractions because he does it this way. Streaming, you know, the classes. But he really misses his choir. You know, it's like doing choir over, you know, recordings isn't as good. You know, and his choir teacher's amazing, and he's making it work. But you can tell it's like we got to get these people back in the damn, you know, room together. Otherwise,
I really like the idea.
Work, you know.
I really like the idea of like school becoming, you know, a few days a week for the social stuff and the physical stuff and the choirs and stuff, but you know, turning half of the week into working remotely. But I mean, I feel the same way about work. Like we live in this era now where we can do so many things from home, and yet we're still all burning dinosaurs in order to go sit in a room and breathe the same contaminated air for 8-9 hours a day. And for what?
With a bunch of nerds who don't know how to shower. You know, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it's a diminishing returns thing, right? I mean, for a lot of people, you need 40, 50 hours a week of that. For a lot of people, you need 10 hours a week of that. And if you can figure out a balance, then I think you would get back all that commute time. And that is, I mean, that's priceless.
I mean, I work live pretty close to work, but my commute was regularly 15 minutes, you know, and so that's a half hour a day plus. And then like all the little things you don't think about, like the time it takes to go get lunch in an office, you know, the time it takes to like, and the thing is, I got to the point in my career at Google where I had a huddle and I was basically doing VC meetings, and then I'd do a couple of in-person meetings during the day, but not a lot. It's like, you know, how is this any different except for those in-person staff meetings, you know, from what I was doing 6 months ago?
All right, man. Let's all work from home forever, just like Twitter, until we're fired. I promise not to fire
Until we're all
us.
fired.
Yeah, I promise
From
not
the
to fire
podcast?
us. Yep, from Geeks in Space. Nobody gets
Wow.
fired.
Well, I mean, I don't
Right.
know. Nate's kind of unreliable, you know. He doesn't show up very often.
But not fired.
It's true. Well, it's funny because him and Cliff are on all the invites. You know, they can just show up whenever they want.
That's true.
You know?
And Bates sometimes does.
Yeah,
All
Bates does too.
All right, let's say some goodbyes. This has been episode 457 of Geeks in Space. I'd like to say goodbye to my guests today, Mr. Rob Roseboom.
See ya.
And Mr. Chris DeBona.
Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, telling you to click on all the things that make us wealthy and wise and famous and cool. And
doesn't do any of those things.
Nobody does any of those things. It's all right, because I'm only asking because it seems like the tradition. But yep, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Tradition.